Welcome, everyone. I am Kristen Diane. Welcome to the You've Been Laid Off Now What webinar by thebossysauce.com. We're going to get started in a minute. I just first want to say if you have recently gone through a RIF or a layoff, I'm really sorry about your experience, and I just want to thank you for showing up. There's going to be a lot of useful content today to help you manage going through that time in between your jobs, and then also to help you manage getting your next job. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. But before we do that, I want to let you know that there is a survey at the very bottom. So just like a normal YouTube video, if you scroll just right below and expand that option right below, there's all the URLs that I'll be referencing throughout this webinar. And the very first URL is a 3-question survey. What I want to do is share that survey, the holistic results, not any individual results. Those are confidential. In fact, I don't even know individual responses. They are anonymous, but it's really a showcase in empathy that I'm going to put forward and email everybody the results. So please take a moment and fill that out. It should take you under 30 seconds, multiple choice. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay. So the chat feature on the, I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. You have to be a YouTube subscriber to my channel to go ahead and chat. But the subscribe button comes as easy as the unsubscribe. So if you don't want to be a part of it afterwards, feel free to go ahead and unsubscribe after. I may not be able to answer questions throughout. I'm going to check real quick just to see if anybody has anything right now. There is a little bit of a delay in the response time between when you're receiving my signal and my receiving your chat. So just be mindful of that as well. But I might need a third monitor to get in order to do these webinars to be able to utilize all my software and toggle between chats. So just wanted to let you know I'm not going to be able to see it throughout the whole thing, but I'll look back every now and then. There also might be some reluctance to ask questions throughout, given the nature of the topic that we're going over today. So because of that, I'm going to provide a more confidential way for you to ask your questions by the end, and I'll go over that later. Again, just to go over, all the links that I'm going to be referencing throughout are going to be in the show more below. So if you just joined, just like a normal YouTube video, click that show more right below this video, and all the URLs that I'm going to be referencing will be right there. So here's the agenda that we're going to be going over today. So if you are okay, so you just got laid off, you might be navigating all these contracts, right? So I'm going to go over all the government agencies that are associated with all of those laws and everything, with all the pieces associated with the contracts you might be signing. May not be the most fun stuff to go over, but it's really important. And we're also going to go over health and benefits options. There might be a lot of things that you haven't even considered or thought of. Visas and immigration, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but for the people that it does affect, it affects massively. So I do want to touch on this. And then LinkedIn as a tool. So recruitment, there's a lot of stuff we could go over on this, but we're not going to go over everything. But I want to show you some new features that are really going to help you brand yourself as a subject matter expert in your space and help you land a job. Then we're going to end with fire questions and job tips, common questions on unemployment, layoffs, and job searching. And then if you stay to the very end of the webinar, I have a resume enhancing freebie. It's downloadable, shareable, and you can share it with anybody. It'll help you with your resume. And also, if you are in recruitment or HR, it's going to be especially helpful for you in your job, as you're always asked to help people with their resumes. Again, because I know people joined a little bit late, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. 3-question survey. 2 of the questions are formatted like this. It's the first URL below, just take a second to fill that out. And I'm going to send the responses, the holistic response to the group in email. And I think it'll be really fascinating for everybody to see these responses after the webinar. So go ahead and fill that out. So who am I? Who are you going to be spending this time with? I am Kristen. I have either worked full-time or contracted or consulted at Google, Microsoft, Activision, Frog Design, Essence Global. I've also worked at a couple startups, game studios, media and advertising agencies. I'm SPHR certified. I've now taken all of that as an HR leader, all that recruitment skills that from all my prior years recruiting. And I'm a blogger, vlogger, podcaster, marketer, career coach, online educator, and I still maintain my SPHR certification. Really what that all is I'm a career coach, but there's a lot that encompasses it. And I do a lot to kind of put under that umbrella, if you will. So why am I doing this webinar? Well, I noticed there are a lot of layoffs going on in the tech world, and I figured this was a really good time to utilize my skills to help some people navigate a particularly difficult time in tech and everything that's going on. So I thought I would kind of, we've experienced in our household, layoff before, and it's really devastating. And I am a career coach. And I know that the talent that is being laid off and experiencing rifts right now is high caliber talent. And when you think about what when you're dealing with new problems on the job and you think about using a career coach, you hopefully someday think about me. So the specialization that I work within is really anything that touches tech. I'll go over that a little bit more at the very end of the webinar. And we'll just put a pin in that for now. And then a couple last things before we dive in. Everything's going to be unemployed focused, layoff focused, and outside voice and perspective. And what I mean by that is there are going to be people that are attending this webinar today that are fully employed and maybe want to gain perspective on how to maybe go through a riff and lay people off better. And that's fantastic. Because, if you have to do that, we want to be able to do it with grace. But the perspective and the voice and tone that we're going to be doing to with the position that we're having today is really going to be through the lens of people who are going through this horrible time themselves. Non-union content. So I just want to focus on the mass kind of tech layoff employment. U.S. employment focus is going to be about 35% of the focus will be on that. So if you are not in the U.S., you can gain some really valuable content, but there are going to be pieces that are going to be very U.S. specific. And then different fields of experience. And what I mean by this is we're going to have people who are junior attending and people who are senior, and then people who span all different fields of experience. So usually webinars are very niche about seniority and field of experience. And this is kind of unique in the fact that we're kind of covering a lot. So be mindful if I seem rudimentary in some areas and then I'm covering a little bit more senior in other areas. I'm not going to be able to cover everything in this 1 hour. Okay, so contracts signed. Let's go ahead and talk about the contracts that you may have signed upon, your employment termination, or that you may be evaluating right now. When you receive these agreements, it's on a really confusing day, right? It's an emotional turmoil type of day, and you're receiving this document and it has tons of confusing legal jargon. And the first thing that you think is skepticism. Everything in here is working against me. Nothing is going to be for me. Well, there are clauses in there that can work for you and that are required to be in there, or that lawyers will put in there knowing that there's a sense of skepticism and kind of manipulate the terminology so that you maybe don't realize it is working for you. And so let me go ahead and tell you what is working for you. You have the right to file with the EEOC, the right to file with the Department of Labor, to file with OSHA, the National Labor Relations Board, right to file with state agencies like the California Department of Fair Labor and Housing, right to file with Labor Commissioner's Office, and the unemployment insurance offices within your state agency. So you're probably like, okay, Kristen, I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means. Okay, perfect. I will do that. So let me break this up a little bit differently for you. So these are government agencies, and they all have different focuses. And so if you had experienced something within discrimination, that would be the EEOC. And you probably have seen this at the bottom of job descriptions before, right? We don't discriminate on the basis of, and then outlining all of the things that they would not discriminate against. Well, that is under the umbrella of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And so if you felt like you had discrimination in your either employment or upon your termination, you would want to file with the EEOC. The fair pay, that also can fall oftentimes in discrimination. That also would be under the EEOC, but you have oftentimes local organizations as well, like the California Department of Fair Housing and Employment. And if you experienced garnished or unpaid wages, that would be the Department of Labor, but you might have local offices or local entities as well. And so I'd look into that. You might get faster servicing that way. I know if you are in tech or in the world like that, you're like, well, this is not a common thing. Well, it's maybe not be overly common, but it does happen. An example would be like a startup is seeking funding. They think they're going to get it. They don't get it. And then they don't run the last couple payrolls. They do layoffs. And now everybody was unpaid and very unhappy. So that would be an example of when you would want to file. Unsafe or illegal work environment, OSHA, workers' comp, the SEC. So each one of these covers different areas of that. So OSHA is usually a physically harmful work environment. Workers' comp is if you were injured. Some of these states actually do include PTSD and mental health as an injury. And then the SEC would be where you go if there was something fraudulent happening. Unemployment insurance is what most people are probably really looking or concerned with or curious about. Now, depending on how much money you make, it might feel like it could feel like a really, really helpful thing, or it could feel like not very much at all, especially depending on the state you're in and the city you live in. But each state runs its own employment insurance program, and if you were laid off and you are no longer on payroll, you should be entitled to unemployment insurance. And so I'll go over that more later and outline that a little bit more, but I do want to just kind of reiterate that if you were no longer on payroll and you were let go as part of a RIF, you should be entitled to unemployment insurance. Okay, severance agreement inclusions. These are the things that are typically included in your severance agreement. So, the confidentiality agreement, usually a reiteration of what was signed at the beginning of employment. Usually what they want you to do is have you sign this again. Release of claims it can be called a no voluntary adverse action or a promise not to sue. For today, we're going to call it a release of claims. Non-disparagement clause is an agreement not to say anything negative about your prior employer. You can actually, if you think there is a concern about you having your employer say anything negative about you, you could actually ask for this to be mutual. An arbitration clause is a one-person court system, often paid by your employer, and there is no jury. The reason why your employer or prior employer would want this in the agreement is because so just kind of a basic concept is a jury of your peers is more likely to favor somebody who has experiences like them and might they're more likely to favor in somebody, the employee, right? But a one-person court system that is paid by the employer would naturally have biases towards the employer. It is a biased system in my opinion, but it is part of our legal system. Okay, so more severance agreement inclusions, the non-compete. A lot of states don't prevent this from being included in severance agreements, and so it confuses people thinking that it actually is enforceable when it's not enforceable. And so a lot of states will still include it as a kind of a fear tactic. And in California, North Dakota, District of Columbia, Oklahoma, non-competes are unenforceable. And then in these other states that I have outlined here, they've banned non-competes for low-wage workers. You can't actually have those agreements for those workers. And then non-solicits can include client and employee poaching and are unenforceable in some states. And in California, you're freely able to obtain employment and income, so they're really unenforceable. Severance payments, that's really what's being offered in order for you to sign the agreement. And then COBRA is included in the agreement to let you know that you have the right to obtain the same insurance plan out of pocket if you choose to pay for it that you currently had with your employer. Usually you receive this document. Actually, you should receive this document every time that you leave an employer in the mail. Okay. So what is a whistleblower? I wanted to go over this in case you feel like there is something that happened at your prior employer and you're evaluating seeking legal counsel. So a whistleblower is a person, often an employee, who reveals information about activity within a private or public organization that is deemed illegal, immoral, illicit, unsafe, or fraudulent. You need good proof to seek a claim on your own, especially after signing a non-disparagement, release of claims, arbitration clause, confidentiality agreement, all that stuff. Compliance with federal agencies is still required even after signing all those agreements. And protections for employees and prior employees are embedded in a lot of our laws, but retaliation still does happen even in really subtle ways, like not picking up the phone or answering the, emails about reference checks or things like that. So whistleblowing still does happen in really, really subtle ways. And, but you can be a whistleblower in ways that are not seeking financial gain by going to the media. But all of these are reasons to seek legal counsel prior to doing that. So if you are evaluating whether or not you have a cause to be a whistleblower, I recommend seeking legal counsel before signing any of your severance agreements. If you already have signed them and you're still thinking about it, again, seek legal counsel. Okay, health benefits. Let's go over this. This is super important stuff. So you are now in a position where, let me take my camera off, you no longer have employment, you don't have anything lined up, and you live in America. And this is one of the first things we think about. Where are we going to get our health insurance? The first place we go are dependent options. Can you be a dependent on a spouse's plan, or if you're under the age of 26, can you be on a parent's plan? If you have a domestic partnership, you can, in a lot of states, be on a domestic partner's plan, but it's not a requirement in a lot of states to have that available. And in California it is. I believe in Washington State it is not a requirement, but it's offered a lot of places. So that's usually the first place people go. COBRA is available. You have to pay out of pocket for COBRA. There's also the Affordable Care Act shops in each state, which I've listed a lot of them on the left side. I think probably 80% of the people who attend this webinar would be able to find their shop on the left-hand panel. And So let me tell you a little bit about the differences between COBRA and the Affordable Care Act shop. Now, people immediately think COBRA, they just get that letter in the mail, they immediately go and they think that's where they should go and get their insurance. But and that could be the best option for you, but it's not the only option. And maybe there are better options for you. So if you are in a certain economical bracket, or maybe even if you were terminated, and even if you happen to typically make good money, but for some reason your income was lower, you could go to the Affordable Care Act shop and put in your income, and maybe you qualify for a subsidized plan. And then the another thing to consider is if your prior employer was putting you on the platinum plan and maybe they were giving that for free, well, obviously, or covered rather, maybe, obviously you would take that plan. Why wouldn't you? But if you're paying out of pocket, maybe the gold plan or the silver plan for a couple of months will suffice. And so there are some things that you might want to consider looking at, and looking at those shops might actually help you. The other thing to look at and just consider, I don't want to be by any means pushing anything. I encourage everybody to do their research, but I was always a PPO person. Never ever thought I'd be on an HMO. When I had to start paying out of pocket, I started looking at Kaiser in the Bay Area, and now I realized that I really like it and will probably always be on Kaiser. And so it saves me money, and it's also really good health care. So that's, but do your research, ask people in your friend network and in your family what they do, and explore your options. So flexible spending account. There are some really good, juicy things that I'm going to share with you here about flexible spending accounts. So the funds can be have to be spent by the end of your last day of employment. So if you are given notice that your employment is going to end, a lot of times RIFs are they're given notice. And you have a flexible spending account, not a health savings account, because you can keep those funds. HSAs we're not talking about today. We're only talking about flexible spending accounts, FSAs. So if you have an FSA, it has to be spent before the end of the day, the last day of employment. The day after your last day of employment, the money goes back to your employer. It's sad news. It's news I don't like delivering, but it's the truth. And so, but there's a flip side to this. So another thing to note is I'm going to give you a little piece of information to bank this in your memory for the future. If you load the maximum amount to your flexible spending account in open enrollment, and then your new plan year begins. So we'll say open enrollment's in November, December. You load I think it's like $2,800 right now. You load $2,800 onto your FSA, and you resign from your job or you're let go on, let's say, January 5th. You will pay 5 days worth towards your FSA, and you are entitled to spend all of that $2,800, and your employer cannot recoup any of that money back. And so pretty much what I'm telling you is if you're ever let go, the first thing, and you have an FSA, you want to go on a shopping spree that day, which is really hard to imagine doing when you're, distraught. But it is what you want to do. So I actually have a blog post right below in the URLs that I have included. I've curated, and I genuinely put this article together and put a lot of thought into it because I got tired of seeing FSA articles online about just sunblock and stuff. So when I knew I've been finding all of these great things and putting them out to my community as an HR representative, as a, hey, FSA time, here's some cool things. And so I finally put together this really good article. If you want to click on that, I'm going to let you know that there are affiliate links in it. So I want to be very transparent and honest about that. But I genuinely believe I have never seen an article as good as the one I put together. So save that information for you if it doesn't apply. And if it does apply, spend that money. Okay. Mental health services. This is really important when you are going through a time like this, right? 1 in 5 Americans without a job for a year or more report that they've been or are currently undergoing treatment for depression. And mental health is really important for confidence and essential in gaining employment. It's kind of a feedback loop. Job equals confidence, and confidence equals job. And so it's really important to not neglect getting mental health services if you feel like you need them. And I know that it can feel like a financial burden to invest money in mental health when you feel like finances are tight. And so I wanted to outline some options here that provide some discounted services for mental health in a time in which, your finances might be tight. So BetterHelp is one option. They give a discount for unemployment. OpenPath does the same thing, but you have to be making less than $100,000 a year. I believe, that also could be for somebody who is made less than $100,000 in that year, even if you typically maybe make more. But when you cross back over, you ethically would have to go back to, I think maybe paying more or paying full price or out of the program. Just wanted to be transparent about that. The Regain is mostly for couples. And then I did include options for San Francisco and New York City for finding more local in-person options if that's something that you really want to seek out. And if you are another option, if you are still on payroll, you could have an EAP, and this EAP could offer some services that you should still take advantage of. So if you are on an EAP, you could have free therapy sessions that you could roll into utilizing with your so you could roll into utilizing these free therapy sessions and then utilize BetterHelp, etc. afterwards. So let's say you you have this, you want to continue your therapy with your insurance provider. Usually you can connect that in advance. The average EAP usually has between 3 and 8 sessions that are included for free. And then they also usually include a free legal session a year and a free financial session per year. So it's worth looking into if that's an option for you. Okay, we're going to talk now something real juicy. Employee stock options. This is important if you are considering buying stock options as somebody who is leaving an employer where you had these, or negotiating them if you are going into a new job, right? And we're not going to be able to cover everything because this is a huge topic, but I wanted to give you some fundamentals. So a stock option is the right to buy a set number of shares at a fixed price, usually the market value of shares when they're granted to you. This price is set by a 409A valuation, is often called the strike price, the grant price, or the exercise price. When I first got into, recruitment, I had to learn all this stuff. It was very, it was confusing to me, but, we're going to break it down, make it real fundamental. Employee stock granting. Your grant will give you all the details of your equity plan, including the types of stocks you get, how many shares you get, your strike price, which is the cost to purchase the shares, usually based off of fair market value, and the stock of the time of the grant, your vesting schedule, and your vesting cliff, which is when companies make you stay for a certain amount of time, usually at least a year before you can actually exercise any of your options. So the value of the share increases over time, and you make money on the difference between your fixed purchase price and your eventual sale price, or the spread. So that is kind of a basic concept, right? You want to get in low and get high, kind of really like anything in the stock market, but it doesn't always work that way. Everybody thinks they get in at Uber or at Google or what have you, and they end up with these shares and they're always going to pan out, but it doesn't always. So I'm going to break this down for you in the most fundamental way that I can. And it is There are so many intricacies we could go over. We're going to keep it super fundamental. And if you really, really know stocks, you might be like, okay, Chris, there's so much more. Well, we're not doing that today. We're going to keep it super simple. On the left side here, we have options, which is options to purchase stock shares. And on the right side, we have stock share granting. So starting out, we're going to talk about ISOs, which is incentive stock options. You may only have to pay taxes when you sell your shares on the value of the difference. These options vest over time when you work at a company and you exercise or purchase these shares before selling. So when you're leaving a job, you need to make the decision, am I going to exercise or purchase these? NSOs are non-qualified stock options. You pay taxes both when you exercise and sell. It's the least tax favorable to employees because it's the most tax favorable to companies. Options vest over time when you work at the company. And then now we're going to talk about RSUs, or restricted stock units. You pay income tax on the fair market value of shares when you acquire them, which is usually as soon as they vest. They vest over time and you own them. So you acquire them, you own them, but you don't actually get to really make anything off of them until, one, they need to have a value higher than when you own them, when you first got them. And then they need to cross usually a second trigger or milestone, like an IPO or an acquisition. And if you leave your company, you'll get to keep your fully vested shares. But they might not end up actually coming to fruition if they expire, or if if something happens before they actually come to that second trigger. So RSAs, restricted stock awards, are early stage companies oftentimes use these, and usually they use them when the fair market value of a common stock is very low and the tax burden is low. They vest over time and you own them, very similar to RSUs. And you need that second trigger, same way as RSUs. They are issued at the grant, and the company maintains a repurchasing right until the shares are fully vested. Now, all of these you can see in startups and Bay Area companies or Bay Area-like companies all over the world, but I would say the ones that I see the most are ISOs and RSUs, but you can see any of them, so keep an eye. And if you want to screenshot any page, I would say this would be the one. So I'm going to keep it here for a couple more seconds in case anybody wants to screenshot this. I think that this might come in useful to anybody who's trying to evaluate whether or not they should purchase or how to negotiate. Okay. Employee stock option upon leaving. So what do you do if you're evaluating if you should purchase or not? So if you have ISOs, the unvested or forfeited, the unvested are forfeited back to the company. You need to decide whether you want to exercise your options and purchase them between an exercise or termination window, which is usually 30 to 90 days. And the average is 90, but 30 is the minimum. NSOs, same story. RSUs, uninvested or forfeited back to the company. You get to keep your fully vested shares. There's no purchase necessary, but it's possible for your time vested shares to expire before they fully vest. Like the second trigger might not happen too. RSAs, the unvested shares will be repurchased by the company and you'll get to keep your fully vested shares. No purchase necessary, but these can often be more volatile and vulnerable companies like startups. So the RSAs, it's a little riskier, but it's usually if you get in earlier, it's higher risk, but a lot higher reward, but a lot higher risk. There are so many startups that fail, but the ones that do, if you happen to get those RSAs early, then they can really pay off. So should you purchase options? Questions to ask yourself. Did you meet your vesting cliff? Is purchasing even an option to you? Will purchasing the options put you in financial hardship? Can you afford to lose the money? It's really important to evaluate that. Do you think the company will be successful despite the potential recent layoffs? Do you have a long exercise window to decide? If you have 6 months or more, I would wait till that 5 month mark before, starting to really and then go back and do your research, set a calendar reminder. Do you get a good purchase value compared to the current value? Are there other investments out there that could have a better return with less risk for the same financial investment? Just because this is an option to you doesn't mean it's the only option. Can you manage the contradicting feelings? And what I mean by that is if you experienced a layoff, you would have to be investing in a company that didn't ultimately invest in you. And that sounds harsh to say it that way, but I actually did buy my shares from a company that I wasn't laid off from, but I left feeling salty. And so I can attest to this feeling. So visas and immigration. This is not, it doesn't affect everybody, but the people that it does affect, it does affect massively. So we're going to only talk about this for a few minutes. Bear with me if this does not affect you. But if you are a people manager, you might be able to bank some of this information for the people in your future or currently that might experience some of these immigration concerns. Okay. Difficult. It is very difficult for people who are experiencing this. When somebody is laid off and they have a visa, it can affect more than just them. It affects families that have to relocate, children in schools. Our immigration process can be very, very, very confusing, very costly when finances are tight. And sometimes things don't work out in the end. So it requires a lot of empathy for those people. And if you have an H-1B, you have a 60-day grace period to get a new job. If you're getting close to that 60 days, you can apply for a change of status to a B-1 visitor visa to remain in the U.S. You consider going back to school and file a change of status to an F1 student visa. And that actually, there are a lot of community colleges you might be able to look at or city colleges. And some of those in some areas are actually becoming really cost effective or even free. If you have a spouse on another visa, you can change the status to become their dependent on their visa. And then return to this is the least favorable one, but returning to your home country and continue to applying for jobs. But your employer must pay for transportation back to your home country. That is the one perk of that option. A TN visa, you have 60 days to stay in the U.S. If you find a new job, you have to, the new employer must file a petition with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. You have to return to Canada and Mexico to reapply on reentry with a new employer, and citizens of Mexico whose TN visas are still valid will not have to apply for a new visa. They can appear directly at the port of entry with a new employer letter. And then prior employees do not have to pay for travel back to your home country. So that is the downfall of having a TN visa. But I think it's because the countries are so much closer than a lot of people who have H-1Bs. U.S. green card holders. Now, this one is truly brutal, and I'm so sorry for anybody who might be going through this. You might have to start over from square one. It is painful to say that out loud, and it's probably way more painful to hear. But there is one silver lining, and that is that you may be able to retain your previous priority date for the purposes of your I-140 petition. If you've already filed the I-485 application and you are in authorized status, you will remain in status until USCIS reviews your case and calls you in for an interview. At that time, you can file your I-485 application. You should also have filed your advance parole and employment authorization. If you haven't done that and you're at that stage, file it ASAP. The EAD will allow you to work for any U.S. employer without requiring the employer to file an H-1B petition on your behalf. If you were new to all this and you're going, that's really confusing. Yeah. So just a little insight into that. Okay, so we're moving on to another topic now. LinkedIn as a tool. Okay. We're going to cover 3 basic things today. 3 features and how to brand yourself using LinkedIn. Creator mode, so how do you, LinkedIn as a search engine, and how to position yourself as somebody who is looking on LinkedIn. Okay, so LinkedIn creator mode. If you haven't used creator mode before, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So there are a few things that are really advantageous, and then some things that you might be like, meh. And one of them is the connect button. Followers is probably a little bit more meh, but unless you're in marketing or something, really building a brand. But that is, you can have you switch over to creator mode, and now you might have gone to somebody's profile and it says follow instead of connect, and you have to click the toggle down. And that is even if they're not third degree connected. And so that means they have creator mode turned on. You can turn that mode on too. Anybody can turn it on. The get discovered is you can utilize some of these features to get discovered, like display topic hashtags. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that on the next screen. And really what it is, it's all about kind of being the subject matter expert and branding yourself altogether as somebody who is the person to follow in that space. And all of these things actually do help you land jobs, believe it or not, right? People see your posts, they see that you're an expert, and then they want to be engaged with you, and they have jobs that are available. So this is what the LinkedIn Creator Tools Hub looks like. As you can see here, these are the current hashtags I have. I'm probably going to change some of these at some point in the future. Hopefully the tech layoffs comes off sometime soon. I can host LinkedIn Lives, audio events, post newsletters, and then I can use this follow on LinkedIn button that I can add to my website or anywhere on the internet. They give me the code for that. Some really cool features. Another one is adding a custom URL to my website, to my bio. If you are a marketer or if you are a creative in any way, like a designer, this is something you should absolutely be utilizing. And so in the past, we used to have, back in the day on LinkedIn, we're talking like 8 years ago or more, there used to be a link right below where it had like portfolio, and then they moved that into the contact info information. And so it's kind of back now where it's into the bio, but even a little bit more present. So you can put your portfolio, your website, whatever you're trying to direct people to right there. Oh, and I have a video right below how to do that. I have a 3-minute video. So go ahead and click below, and you can watch that 3-minute video that I created. Save it for after the webinar, but I do have it in the URLs. And LinkedIn as a search engine, now we're going to talk about that a little bit. So let's go over all of the major pieces of your profile, just really rough and tumble. So we have the headline. You should say what you actually do. If you say something like looking for a job and you don't actually say what you do, there are areas in LinkedIn where people might not see your whole profile and your and everything that you do, because there are areas where it actually says, the bio, the very top bio, but there are other areas where it won't say that. And so you want to say what you do or what you want people to see in your bio as well. So I recommend that headline being utilized in that way. The about section should be a few sentences, really for visuals or to say what you do, and then the rest of it is for SEO. So you want to ultimately think of LinkedIn as a search engine for recruiters to look for people. And that is really what it is. Recruiters and companies, they pay a lot of money to have access. I mean, it's like, just to be really transparent with you, it's like $15,000 for each license for a recruiter to be able to look up and have unlimited access to look up people on LinkedIn. And they look at all of those softwares, all of those keywords, all of those resume words and job description words and phrases that you could ever think about. And if you are missing those pieces, you're not going to be found. And so you want to have those things on there. The about section is only about, I think it's the first 3 lines. People barely ever click that toggle down. So those first 3 lines are utilized how is something that you want people to see. And then after that, it's just really fluffy SEO stuff. You can utilize that though. The job titles, you want to make sure if you've ever had an obscure job title that doesn't really align to what you've done, you put your real job title, and then you put your, in parentheses, put your really what that means job title. So that way you can be found as a search engine. And then the job content, you want to make sure that you don't leave that empty. A lot of people do, because that is valuable SEO space. If you want, just copy and paste it over from your resume. It's super easy peasy to do. Make sure ultimately you're just not missing all those key words and phrases. So how do you position yourself as someone who's looking? There's a few different ways to do that. We all have seen the, if you're on LinkedIn, which most people here have been because you registered, a lot of you through LinkedIn, the open to work frame. Now, there are some people that are really reluctant to using it, especially people who are more senior, and they feel like it is embarrassing or feels like it shames them in some way. But I am here to tell you that we are well beyond that now. After COVID and all the unemployment, I think it was near 20% that year in the US. And then now we're going through the tech layoffs. We're just so past that. People don't really feel that anymore. So if you have that bias in your mind, I think that is still something that's something you need to get over. If you feel really reluctant to that, you can try going out, and not using it for a bit. And then if you are having a hard time, just try it for a week. The curated post, I would say write something thoughtful stating why you're looking. Put a few hashtags. Don't use more than about 5 hashtags. And be a little bit vulnerable about if you were laid off, just about why you're looking and what happened in your experience. People are really empathetic in the last few years to everything that's been going on. And so I would say you get one real good shot at this curated post. So lean into it. If you already did that and you didn't get much traction, you might be able to do it again after about 6 weeks or so. Open messaging. This is another one I really recommend. If you are on the job hunt, make your InMail open and add your email to your contact info while you're searching for a new role. You can take that off later if it's really something that you don't want to have on there all the time. But while you're looking, it really is helpful because there are a lot. InMails cost like $10 or so if you're paying out of pocket for them, which nobody does unless you're a company who has a license or something. So the ultimately what I'm getting at is the average manager is just not going to, write you an email or an InMail rather. They're going to try to find a loophole. They only get so many requests. Anyways, just keep your InMail open while you're looking for a job. It just makes it so much easier. People don't need to go jump through hoops. Okay, it's fire question time. Job search tips. Okay, and job search tips. Design portfolios. Link on your LinkedIn and open messaging. Password is needed. If a password's needed for your portfolio, please make sure you have one viewable piece. Frankly, recruiters are not going to reach out with all the talent that's out there to ask for your portfolio unless you're a referral. They just won't. Being really, really honest with you. If you have to have one viewable piece or you don't have any viewable pieces because it's all client protected, then make something on your own. You're creative. You're in the creative space. Do that. And then another one is respect the job offer. Don't sign a job offer unless you're prepared to take it. There are some exceptions to this. I've seen, a post recently about a company that really took a job offer sideways after it was signed. That's different. What I'm talking about is there's kind of a trend nowadays where people are signing job offers and then still interviewing, and that's super not cool. It really does kind of ruin your reputation in the job market, and all those people span out and go to different companies. And so it really does kind of taint things for you in ways you don't want. Design style resumes, Canva has a ton. You can also get templated resumes from Microsoft and Google Docs for those basic formats. But be mindful if for those design style resumes, if you are applying to a job online and the import doesn't import your name and your phone number or email correctly, then you're going to want to go use a Word or Google style resume, like a .word resume, because that means that your design style resume is going to import everything incorrectly, and you don't want that. Rejection fatigue is real. Interview and rejection fatigue is a super real thing. Get ahead with therapy, counseling, meditation, all of that stuff, because your confidence is really important in the interview process. Okay, fire question number 1. Can I get unemployment insurance if I was laid off? If you were no longer on payroll and you were not let go for cause, and it was a reduction in force, you should be eligible for unemployment insurance. I recently had a client tell me they didn't file because they were waiting about 1 month to get paid out for their final check after being part of a RIF, which is really sad to hear because I don't think they can get that backdated. In California, you should receive your final paycheck on your last day, and I think there are a couple other states that do this. So there's no confusion about your rights, but you should be able to get unemployment insurance if you qualify under the terms that I just stated. Go ahead and file. The worst thing that could happen is they say no. And even if it's not very much money, some money is better than no money, and really you're entitled to it, right? Are U.S. employers required to pay severance? They are not. They usually offer you a severance agreement to sign all those employer protecting documents that we went over. Do employers pay out for unlimited vacation? They do not. It's the employer's perk for offering this benefit. That's why it became so popular. There's no tracking vacation, but no payout either. So what that really means is that when you are offered unlimited vacation, you should actually take a good amount of vacation, because you are not going to receive any payout for vacation when you leave that employer. All right. So for your questions, what I would like to do is provide a personal, private, and confidential way for you to have your questions answered. So I'm providing 3 different ways here for you to connect on those. Okay, so you can email me. I've put my email here. Feel free to jot it down, take a screenshot. Also, my LinkedIn in-mail is completely open. So anybody can email me whether they want to connect or not. But I also encourage you to connect with me as long as you don't look like you're going to scam me or try to hack my account or try to sell me too hard on anything. I pretty much will allow anybody to connect with me. So like my URL is right below in the URLs. Feel free to do that to connect with me or message me. You can also join my Slack community. It's getting pretty lively now. I just started about 6 weeks ago, and the link is also below. You can go ahead and join. The details are in that link. I also offer a free coaching session, and this is open to anybody who is in the tech space or touches tech in any way, and marketing, creative, HR. I'll go over that a little bit more in a sec, but you can go ahead and book a free coaching call. Again, URL right below. And so who benefits from coaching with me? I have 2 different coaching services that I provide: career transitions and career growth. So career transitions are you're getting a new job or you're changing careers. So it could be either one of those. So I support tech and engineering and any role supporting tech, marketing, HR, all of the types of PMs, project, program, and product, and then recruiting, operations, business development, strategy, design, and creative. Everything in the design and creative space, from gaming to advertising to design thinking. I've worked in it all. And then career growth, that is really all the above I focus on, except for the individual contributor software engineer. So I do work with people managers within that space, but not the like active everyday engineer coder. And really that's just because that's not my specific niche. I really focus on growing people into managers and leadership and all of those things. And so and the business strategy side. And so if you are looking for that career growth side and you want to you're getting passed up for promotions, you want to develop people management skills, manage difficult conversations and situations, and broaden your business strategy, those are all the different areas that I could help with coaching. I also have a coordinator to recruiter webinar on November 3rd coming up. If you are a recruitment coordinator, or you know or know anybody who is, or you manage coordinators, this one is specifically for you. You can register. Again, URL is right below to register. And I don't think I've ever seen a webinar specifically for coordinators. I feel like most webinars in HR and recruitment are for the mid-level to really executive or senior level. And so I really wanted to focus in and hone in on coordinators, the real heart of recruitment. So please go ahead, register, forward that on. It's going to be a good time. I only put this webinar on 1 or 2 times a year. So please send that on. And then just a reminder, I'll send those survey responses out. So keep an eye on that email. And then that resume enhancing freebie, I'm going to put in the chat right now. Just give me 1 second. So just give me 1 second and I will include that in the chat. Just got to get that link. All right. Awesome. So if you click that link right there, it should auto download for you. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time today and letting me be a part of your journey. I know that it can be really difficult going through a layoff. And if you're either here because you've experienced one or because you're fearful that you may be potentially going to go through one, my heart goes out to you. And I think it's wonderful that you showed up to learn some stuff today. And I hope that I can help you on your journey a little bit more throughout either this time or another time in your career. So feel free to either join the Slack community, to connect on LinkedIn, to book that free coaching session, or to just, say hi whenever you want. And other than that, I just want to say thank you for your time today, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.